Okay, this is your second video on 1.2 combining functions. So this is based on the f function, the g function, the h function, and the j function. There is no I function, but it's f, g, h, and j. So be very careful. Now on this one, what we want is the one that says square root of x minus 4. So what I could notice is we have x minus 4 is the f function, and I see g is the square root of x. And so we're not going to choose anything with h, because this was like h circle g and this is g circle h. And so the question is, do you go this way or that way? So that's a good question. So on this one, you have the square root of x minus 4. So you start writing blank minus 4, and then in place of the square root of x, you put x. So that means f is on the outside. Start with f. Okay. And then on the next one, 2 square root of x. Well, somewhere over there was a j, which was 2x. And again, g was the square root of x. So if we're starting with j, then that would be 2 blank, and then in that blank you put square root of x. So you're not doing anything with h, and so the question is it this way or that way? And you started with j, and so it's j circle g. Kind of looks like jog. Okay, now this one is x to the 1/4. Okay, well there is not x to the 1/4 anywhere. But what you have is you have g, which is the square root of x. And another way to write that is with a little 2 there and a 1 there. And so that's also considered x to the 1/2. Now, let's just pretend you had something like x to the half. Well, a power to a power, multiply the power, gives you x to the 1/4. And that's actually what we want. And so this would be g circle g. So g circle g. Okay. The next one, we have 4x. Well, I see that on j we have 2x. What if we had 2 of 2x? Then that would give us 4x. And so this would be j circle j. Whoops, j circle j. Not like this. That's a funny thing. It's j circle j. So that's a. Okay, so now on E, this time we've got to think about the outside function as the square root of x, which is the g function. Then we have to think, okay, well you do minus 4, but you also cube it. You have to cube it first. So if you're going to cube it first, then that's h. And then you have to do let's see, minus 4 part, which is f. So this would be the square root x minus 4 to the 3rd. Because basically what you're doing is you're saying square root of x, then you're saying square root of something to the 3rd power, and then putting f in last. So it's like this, which is G circle H circle F. Okay, and then on this one, it looks like we had to do something to the third power first, which is H. Now this is where it looks a little more complicated. You have 2x minus 8, but that's not in there. Well, what if you had 2x? If you had 2x, that would be J. And then what if in place of that x, we put x minus 4? And that is not right. So what you need to do is have a bracket around it and make sure all of that is cubed. So the x minus 4 part is the f. So it's H circle J circle F, which is C. Now the reason is because that would turn into 2x minus 8, then cubed. So that's what we want for C. Or that's what we want for F. The answer is C. Okay, now this one is sort of similar to it. You have G, then you have F, and then they have F circle G, which is the same thing as saying F of G of X. So F is on the outside, so we start writing the square root of X, and then we put X minus 7 in there. So they just simply have X minus 7 like that. Okay, now on this one, you start with the 4x, so it's 4 times something, and then you put the x plus 1 in there, and so that turns into 4x plus 4. Okay, now this one's backwards. Okay, so if our final answer was this, and this answer was very similar except for it's not squared, then that tells you that x squared had to go right here. There's really no more work than that. If you want to check your answer, that would be start with the F, start with F, and go square root of something minus 9, and then we put x squared here. And that, sure enough, that's it. So it may be beneficial for you to do that. Okay, now this one's a little more complicated because you have 2 sets of fractions, and then you have a blank. So what we do is start writing your f function, which is 5 times something over something minus 1. That's the f function. And then you plug in this, which is x over x minus 5. Whoops. This is x over x minus 5. Okay, this really does look confusing, but I know you have this problem later. So let's solve it now. You go 5x on top, keep it x minus 5, because you don't distribute to both the top and the bottom. You just keep it to the top. And then on this one, I have to make this a common denominator. And so the common denominator would be x minus 5. And so in order to get that, I've got to have x minus parentheses I need the same thing on top and bottom, so this would have to be x minus 5. Now, the reason for doing that is to cancel the x minus 5 denominators. So that would give us 5x over x minus parentheses x minus 5. Now, to reduce that, it's 5x, and then distribute this minus sign, so it's x minus x plus 5. So your x minus 5 cancels, or x minus x cancels. Then your 5 cancels also, and so you're left with x. So your answer is x. Now, what that really would tell you later on, you're going to figure out, that means that these two functions are inverses. All right, so now let's do E. Okay, this was D, this is E. On E, we start writing 3 plus 1 over something, and we want to end up just getting x. So, let's see. On this one, what we do is we start like that, and then we've got to make it like it's 3 plus 1 over the g of x function equal the x function, which is the f circle g. Okay, so now what we need to do is we subtract 3 from both sides. So we have 1 over g of x equal x minus 3. And then you take the reciprocal of both sides. So when you flip it, g of x goes on top, and it becomes 1 over x minus 3. So that's the reciprocal. So 1 over x minus 3. Okay, in the same way, we need to do that with f. So f over here, now this one does it a little bit different. This time we have g of x, I'll just rewrite the problem, is 1 over x. F we don't know, and then f circle g ends up being x. So we're basically going this direction this time. So we say f of g of x equal x, and then the g of x we knew was 1 over x. So f of 1 over x equal x. So in order for that to happen, you'd have to have your x flip, and the only way it flips is if you had 1 over x. That would make it flip. So what that means is that 1 over x is f of x. So 1 over x is your answer. So in other words, it goes 1 over x, 1 over x, x. And if you wanted to check your work, like the other side, we'd say start writing the f function, start with f. So it's 1 over something, and make it equal to x, well, this would have to be 1 over x for it to flip. And so that works. Okay, so there's number 7. Now this one is with all numbers. So again, we have to work inside out. So in other words, do g of 6 first. So you find where 6 is, and then you're doing g, which is the bottom column, and so you get 8. So g of 6 is 8. Now you need to do f of 8. So now you go to the 8, and you go to f, and you get 8. Okay. Now on this one, you do f of 7. So you go to the 7, you make sure you go to f, and you get 5. Then you have to do g of 5. So you go to 5, you go to g, and you get 9. Alright. Then on this one, you have to do f of 6. So you go to 6, go to f, excuse me, to f, you get 7. And then you have to do f of 7. So when you go to 7 and go to f, you get 5. Okay, and then on this one, you do g of 9. So that means you go to 9, you go to g, and that's 7. You just have to go to the appropriate row, and then you do g of 7. So you go to 7, go to g, and you get 7. So that's how that works. It's kind of like a puzzle, sort of. So again, on that, you work inside out. Okay, on the next one, this time you have to look at the piecewise functions, like specific parts. These are the expressions, these are the conditions, and you have an f of x function, and then you have a g of x with 2 parts, based on if x is between -2 and 0, but not including 0, and on this one from 0 to 2 inclusive. So this one includes 0. Alright, so first thing we're doing inside out again. We do g of 0. So you go to the g function, find the one that has 0, and that's going to be 0 minus 1, which is -1. Then you do f of that answer, and so that would be 2 minus -1 in parentheses, which is like 2 plus 1, and you get 3. Okay. On this one, you do f of 3 first, so that would be 2 minus 3, which is -1. Then do g of -1. So -1 falls in the interval from -2 to 0. So you do the top function, which is minus, and then you write something, and that something is -1, so you get 1. Okay, on this one, you do g of -1. We already figured out that was 1. And then you do g of 1. So now 1 falls in the bottom interval, and so you do 1 minus 1, which is 0. Okay. Now we have f of 2. So f of 2 would mean do 2 minus 2, which is 0. And then do f of 0, which would be 2 minus 0, which is 2. Okay, so this one you do f of 0, which would be 2 because we just did that earlier. And now we do g of that answer. 2 falls in the bottom interval, and so you go 2 minus 1, which is 1. So that's that answer. And now you have a fraction. You do g of 1/2, and so that would fall in the interval between 0 and 2. So that would be 1/2 minus 1, which is, hold on, g of 1/2 is negative 1/2, and then do f of that answer. So f of negative 1/2 would be like 2 minus negative 1/2, which is 2 and 1/2, otherwise 2.5, otherwise 5/2. So the answer key shows 5/2. I don't know if Math Excel would accept that on Simplify or not. You might want to check, but that one is like 2.5, which is really 5/2. Okay, hopefully now for some easier ones, because I know that's kind of like a puzzle. You have to get the hang of it, and you do have to go inside out. Now number 10, this one you're trying to graph with A is this one, and it's shifted, and the first step is it's upside down, so that means it's negative x squared. And then the next step would be on A, if this is the 5, then you're going here, which is 6. So that one you're going right 6. So because of that, you go minus, and if you're going right, it's going to be a minus sign. Because it's the opposite of what you think. You go right when it's minus. And you can graph it in your calculator and compare it to that. On this one, you're going left, and they're not perfectly symmetric, so don't say left 6. Here's 5, here's 6, 7, 8. So this is negative 8, which means you're going left 8, so that means plus. So again, minus for your first to flip down, because that reflects the x-axis, and then we need a plus like that. So it was left 8, which was plus. So we reflect across the x-axis first, and then we go left 8, and we square it. Okay. Now this one, you're dealing with a circle, and on this one, this is the equation of a circle, so you could see it's a circle, but also the format, it's like x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equal r squared. And that means that on this one, your hk would have to be 0, 0. And then from there, we're going to go up 4 and left 3. So the left 3 goes to the front, the up 4 goes to the back. Okay, so you go minus 3 and up 4. This is too far down. By the way, you can barely see the original on all of them, and then they put the next one darker. So what we're looking for is something in this quadrant, like X marks the spot, left 3 and up 4, and so that'd be B. Okay, on this one, you have 1 over x, and you're going to go down 2 units, which means you're going to have 1 over x minus 2. And then you're going to go left 4 units, so that means left would be plus, because it's opposite of what you think. So 1 over x plus 4, and then minus 2. On this one, you don't have to get a common denominator, so that would be it. Okay. The common denominator would have been 1 minus 2 times x plus 4 over x plus 4, and then continue. But I'm not going to show that step. Okay, so now we need to choose the graph, and so just use your calculator. So you notice on a lot of those other ones we didn't really get to use the calculator. So that is the time from now and then, every now and then. And on this one, it's more off-center, like down here, which is the C graph. And you can count. Now on this, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, yeah. Notice your X scale, and probably your Y scale too. Yeah, your scales are by 2. So in other words, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And also up here, -2, -4, -6, -8, -10. I don't know how much of this you want to do, but okay. And so we went left 4. So if you go 2 spots over, and then you go down 1 spot, then that's like, think of that as relates to the origin. So that's what we want, because this and this are on opposite sides. Okay, now for 13, we have 1 plus 1 over x squared, and we want to stretch it vertically by a factor of 8. So what we do is 8 parentheses, 1 plus 1 over x squared, and then distribute, so it's 8 plus 8 over x squared. So the other thing, it's going to be a common error, and y'all got to make sure you do it right. That looks correct, but notice it says equation, and they don't have this little y equal out there. So make sure you put y equal 8 plus 8 over x squared, like that. Sometimes they have the y equal built in, but this time they don't. And if they want an equation, you have to have an equal sign. Don't forget y equal. Okay. 14 and 15 are our last ones. Now on 14, we are doing a compression horizontally by a factor of 9. So what we have to do is put a 1/9. Okay, let's work this out slowly. Now if we look at our notes, it says compresses horizontally for c greater than 1, and 9 is greater than 1. It compresses horizontally if y equal f of cx. So we want y equal f of cx, which is inside. Now, by the way, when it recalculates the problem, it may change this to compress vertically. Could change to compress vertically. or any of the others. Stretch vertically and stretch horizontally. So make sure you know how to do each one. I'll show this part again. Compress vertically is if it's 1 over c and then f of x, which is kind of easy. Stretch vertically is the easiest one if you ask me, but you aren't. C and then f of x. Stretch horizontally is the one with divide. So the horizontal ones are the ones where it could be confusing. So you want f of x over c. And the one we're doing is compress horizontally. So that time the c is in the inside. Now, what that means is you're going to have your 9 underneath there. So you go square root (1 minus), and then you would have 9x. No. Yeah. You'd have 9x squared. And if you have your parentheses like I do, then that changes to 1 minus 81x squared. So notice the cx is 9x. And that worked. This time they have the y equal on the out here, and so all you have to do is put square root 1 minus 81x squared. Now, again, just to show you another problem like that, from the book I did 65 several years ago, and that one had square root of 4 minus x squared, and it said stretch horizontally by 2. And so if it's a horizontal stretch, that's where it's over x, and so we had to do 2 squared is 4, and so 4 here, and so it was the square root of 4 minus x squared over 4. Okay. So hopefully you just write this one down and practice. Do similar problem on that. Okay, now for this one, 15, this is the one where you talk about which function is even or odd. So h is even and k is even, and they're all real numbers for your domain, and it wants to know if they're even or odd. So I'm just going to give an example for A. If both of these are even, then you'd have like an example x squared times x to the 4th, which would be 2 plus 4 or 6. And so that's still even. And on this one, if you have x squared over x to the 4th, that would reduce to x to the negative 2, which is the same thing as 1 over x squared. So that function would look like this, which is also even. Oops, I didn't realize that wasn't visible. So I still used x squared and x to the 4th, and I just worked it out. 2 minus 4, because you're bringing it up, to show you the x to the negative 2. And if you wanted to make it normal, it'd be 1 over x squared. So it looks like that, which is even. Now we're doing h circle k, so that's like squared and then x to the fourth. So that'd be x to the eighth, which is also even. Okay. So on that one, it just goes to C. That's interesting. Okay. Now, why that was a little unusual to me is when I did 79 in the book, because you know this is section 1-2, number 79. On that one, it said even and odd. And so on that one, if you have an even like x squared times an odd like x cubed, then you get x to the fifth with odd, and so odd would be dominant. And then it wanted f over g, so x squared over x cubed is 1 over x, which is odd, because it's like that. G over f would be like x cubed over x squared, which is x, which is odd. And see, all y'all had is 3 parts. But on this one, they had you do f squared, which was actually even. G squared, so odd. I didn't do that right. Dang it. Squared, yeah, I did. Okay, because g squared is the same as g times g. So x cubed times x cubed would be x to the 6th, which is even. And then you also had to do f circle g, f circle f, and g circle g, and even g circle f. So anyway, that's why I was surprised that you only have 3 parts. So thank goodness for that, right? All right, that'd be the end. Hope that helps.